My name is Parmod Chhabra, and on behalf of the PCHS Ottawa, I would like to invite you all to the series of videos where we talk about the issues that affect everyone in the community, including our seniors. In our first video, we talked about COVID-19 efforts by community organizations like Care and Share, and how they were able to assist seniors and community during the pandemic. In our second video, we talked about what scam is with our dear friend Sergeant Jasdeep Bajwa from Ottawa Police, and how it affects all of us and how to prevent it. In the third video, we talked about social media benefits and precautions we need to take with our dear friend Amar Ghanekar, who's in fact helping us to record today's show. All of those videos are posted on several community Facebook groups, PCHS and Ottawa Diocese Ottawa Community Channel, and their YouTube channel. In today's video, we'll talk about mental health and discuss what the depression and anxiety is.
Okay.
To talk about mental health, we have our dear friend and a community worker, is Reena Bhandari, is with us. Reena is a professional mental health addiction nurse for 33 years. Throughout her profession, she had worked in different areas of mental health. She is working at the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Care in Ottawa since 1999. That's a long time.
Okay.
And helping our community members and their mental health needs. Okay. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when I was doing the research and on talking about this topic, and one thing just popped up in me, and it says 1 in 4 adults suffer from diagnosable mental disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a big number for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be 1 in 4. Like, that's,
So you're right. On paper it says 1 in 4,
yeah.
But in actuality it could be 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2, because not everybody goes to the doctor.
Right.
And those stats that you're talking about, they only reflect the people that are reported. So there could be lots of other people that don't report their mental health to their physician, and they don't get captured in the stats. So it could be more than that.
As we know, mental health is a very big area of discussion. We can
Absolutely.
spend hours on that.
Yes.
If you don't mind, maybe you just want to describe what mental health is, because during the pandemic, we really start hearing that word. Because
Mm-hmm.
people were all cooped up and they were
Mm-hmm.
in their homes, and so we started hearing about that word. Could you
Mm-hmm.
please just describe our listeners what is that?
So to have good mental health, it encompasses to have good physical health, good emotional health, good connections in the community, having good socioeconomic status. So if you go to the definition of mental health, it kind of encompasses a satisfied, happy life, healthy life. That includes mental health and physical health. So mental health has become a buzzword, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is no problem with having mental health. I think it becomes a problem when mental health problems arise and people start to have issues that affect their the way they cope on a daily basis.
Right.
So, that could be because, they've had a loss, or, they're not able to cope with, let's say, loss of a job or loved one and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which
when
happened
those
during the
kind,
pandemic.
for sure,
Yeah.
and those kind of things, when they start affecting a person, and I've learned in my career that mental health and physical health is really not separate. It's together.
Yes.
Right? If your mental health is affected, your body's going to be affected. If your body's affected, it's going to really affect your mental health. So during the pandemic, it's people lost a lot of connections
Mm-hmm.
that they've had in the community. Their activities that they used to do, the social connections. A lot of people had financial issues. So you can imagine, like, all these losses that have affected their mental health, and hopefully when the pandemic is over, it will get better and people can get back to their normal lives. So one of the questions that I would like to sort of make a clarification is that, if you feel sad, the difference between sadness and depression, a diagnosable illness, If you feel sad because you've lost a job and it's affected your financial status, if you've lost loved ones, or your family is separated from you because of the lockdown, those are all normal reactions, right? To an abnormal situation we never expected.
That's correct.
Right? And so mental health is affected, but if those problems go away and the person goes back to being happy, then that was a temporary situation. The issue arises when somebody is sad and now they're not sleeping well, they're overthinking, they're not eating well, now they don't feel like they want to talk to anybody, so they're isolating, and they stop taking phone calls, they stop making phone calls, and it's sort of like an accumulative effect. And one statement I really want people to sort of think about and remember, that when it starts to affect you on a daily basis, where you're not able to do all your activities that you enjoy, then it's considered a problem.
Okay, so what you're saying is being sad is okay because you lost something, but when it starts affecting your health, or it's affecting your family, or affecting your work, that's when it's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's a depression.
That's depression.
Okay.
And depression comes in many forms. So there could be mild depression, there could be moderate depression, and there's major depression. And generally we don't worry too much with mild depression, because it could be circumstantial, it could be triggered by things that are going on in a person's life, and then when those circumstances get better, the mild depression may go away. It is a big problem when somebody is diagnosed with a major depression, because chemicals in your brain change, and also it affects your cognitive ability, your physical ability. You have no motivation to do even simple things like taking a bath, wanting to eat, cook, just have no energy. Even having a conversation with a family member might be very draining, and you don't know what's going on. For the most part, people really don't realize. They wonder, like, what's happening to me, right? And so the way that major depression is defined, it's 2 weeks of feeling extreme sadness, crying, not having energy, your cognitive ability to think is declined, you're feeling irritable, you may not be sleeping. So you may be mildly depressed for a long time, and maybe it's gone to major, but in terms of thinking of a clinical diagnosis, the doctors actually base it on 2 weeks of your activity, and it has to be extreme.
Right.
And then if that's the case, then that's when you have to go see a doctor, of course, and that's when they diagnose you, and that's when they will treat you with medication.
Okay. So just to explain it, so if I see someone, it could be my friend, it could be my spouse, it could be my father, it could be my mother living with me, and if I see them in that kind of condition, or if as happening to me, I should go to a doctor, what you say?
You should go to a doctor, but sometimes, as I said, people are not aware this is happening to them. They might be thinking, well, it's the pandemic, I'm just feeling tired, I'm feeling lazy. So I think that, instead of Googling, I really recommend do not use the Google doctor, to go talk to a physician. And if you don't have a physician, which lots of people in Ottawa don't have a family doctor, there are services out there that you can call and consult on the phone. And maybe, I'll give you those numbers.
And we will post it at the bottom.
And, we can post those numbers. But certainly there's professionals on the other end. And if you talk to them and say, this is the way I've been feeling, do you think I need to go see a doctor? They will give you some suggestions, and they will give you some resources where you can go and get help.
Yeah, and the reason I ask you that question is because during the pandemic, as you know, some of our friends who have lost their parents, their brother, and could be in India, could be anywhere in the world, and they were not able to go and get a closure.
Right.
And so they were suffering, to me, when you're explaining me the symptoms, 2 weeks, yes, they were like that. They didn't come out of the room. They were just crying and feeling bad. So, and I have recommended to them. So I think that's you're explaining, saying that's what depression, we should go and see a doctor.
So just to add to what I said original, so grieving is a little bit of a longer process.
Mhm.
So for example, in pandemic, if somebody lost a family member in India, or even some people lost more than one family member, and they couldn't go, there's no closure, they couldn't help, they feel helpless. So that 2 weeks may not happen to them right away.
Right.
Right? They may be grieving the loss.
Right.
And it may trigger the depression later on.
Okay.
So those are the friends you want to keep an eye on as a
Mhm.
friend,
Okay.
and make sure that they do not develop symptoms later on. Right now they're going through a grievance process,
Mhm.
and it might take 4 months, 3 months down the road. It will catch up to them that they didn't even realize.
Right.
So those are the kind of people you want to keep an eye on,
Mhm.
and say, if you're not feeling good, I'm available. Please
Right.
call me.
Okay.
And keep that connection going.
That's exactly what my next question was. There's a lot of friends or people, in Indian community, it's a taboo to say, even to say that, I have mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you get to the depression or other word, nobody wants to use that. So if I notice something like that, so how could I help a friend, who doesn't want to be agreeing to go to the doctor, or they don't want to forget about the hospital, they don't want to even go to see their own doctor?
It's true. So I want to make 2 points there. Is that one thing I do want to really encourage our community members, that when they do have issues, to call these services that we are going to post the numbers, at least just to talk.
Right.
And I really want to reassure you that people are not judging you on the other end.
Okay.
So one of the reasons people feel embarrassed to talk about is that you're going to be judged.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that they might see you as being weak, that you're not able to cope with your problems. And it's not a weakness. It's actually, depression is an illness that nobody actually has control over. It happens because there's chemical changes that happen in your brain.
Mhm.
Your activities are affected. And also the other thing I really want to reassure from my own personal experience is that if you call me, and of course I'm Indian and I'm a nurse, believe me, we have licenses to protect. We do
Right.
not go around gossiping
Oh,
about people's problems. So I really want to reassure our community that if they do call and there's an Indian person on the other end, they're not going to go and risk losing their license by gossiping about your problems.
no, that,
So be reassured that they're there to help you, right?
let me bring you one incident where I took somebody to the hospital with something similar. They were not feeling mentally that good. So I took them to the hospital. That was only Avenue area. So as soon as I saw the doctor, Indian doctor there, they said, no, I know them, or they know me somehow.
Mhm.
They didn't want to see them. Could I have another doctor?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go back and talk to the nurse and try to kind of explain to them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, we saw that doctor, and he
Mhm.
was very wonderful and to
Mm-hmm.
talk to, and he understood, and especially with the language issue was not there.
Yeah.
So that helped. So I think the way you said, and that doctor never had said anything to anybody.
Yeah,
You know that.
absolutely. And also, it's not just the language, because
Mhm.
lot of us speak perfect English. We don't need the translation. But let's say, they may understand the cultural factors, right?
This just brings
It's
it
very
closer.
important, right? So to understand the culture that we may live with our extended family, why is family so important? Why us sending money back home is so. So sometimes seeing your doctor, it really makes a big difference, because they may understand your problem in a way that somebody else may not.
Yeah, and that particular person didn't walk out with a pill in his hand or
No.
a prescription.
That's
They
right.
actually had a good talk, and doctor had time to talk to them, and that was a very wonderful talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So one question I would like to ask you is that depression, is that hereditary? Some people I know, my mom had it or my father had it. That could be caused even you are, or you should be aware of that.
Yes. So as I said, there's many forms of depression. Some of it could be circumstantial. Some of it could be from all the losses that are happening. And as I said, if those problems, circumstances resolve, the depression goes away. it might last for a while. But there is certain inheritance that we could say happens to people when they've had family members, with depression. So it's in the genes. It's genetic,
Okay.
as well as like you really in my field, like we really ask, for example, has there been a family member in your family that has ever died by suicide? Because even that is considered that if you've had somebody who has died by suicide in your family,
Yeah.
then the risk of you thinking about suicide and going about, following through with the plan is higher. So that's like it raises your risk.
Okay. One more question just related to that. Is there any age group which is more tend to get depression, or it could be happen to anybody? Like these days we hear a lot of kids are also having depression.
So I think like originally kids were kind of excluded, I want to say, but with all the social media and
Right.
the bullying, the social media bullying and all that, so I don't think depression really is affecting only one gender or one age. I think depression can happen to anyone at any time.
And I think the pandemic has changed the whole scenario now, right? You're probably seeing people were cooped up for such a long time. We never did that, so.
That's
maybe
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a few more minutes, we will talk about anxiety.
Okay.
And because we hear a lot of people are having anxiety, especially our younger generation and some older people, because other day I met one of my friend and he didn't even know this, like how to meet people anymore again. And he was saying, why I'm having anxiety? Like, after a few minutes he said, I'm having anxiety here, like, and I don't know how to even meet people anymore. Could you please put some light on it?
Sure. So again, like depression, having good anxiety is actually good.
Right.
Because you have the flight and fight mode built in us as human beings.
Right.
So if I have a new job interview tomorrow, I'm a little anxious, nervous, it's good.
Yes.
Because I'm going to prepare, right? I might not sleep well because I'm anxious. I may want to leave early to get to those are all normal reactions. Again, like depression, anxiety becomes a big problem for people when your reaction to a normal situation is abnormal. Meaning, if something happens, before you were able to cope with it, and now all of a sudden you are constantly thinking about that problem, you can't get it out of your mind, and it's just like overtaking your life. And basically, again, same like the words I use day to day. So anxiety is a bit complicated than depression in the sense that anxiety is only diagnosed as a diagnosable illness after you've had it for 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Because the doctor wants to make sure he doesn't label you as having anxiety disorder very quickly. So originally they'll say, well, maybe it's just temporary because of circumstances. Maybe if you sleep better, it'll go away. Maybe if you go exercise, it'll go away. So, like they'll kind of keep an eye on you. But they won't actually give you the label of anxiety disorder.
They may give you medication though in that period?
They may, if you're having like, let's say your heart is pounding and you're afraid and you cannot leave. So there's many kinds of anxiety as well, right? So it depends on what symptoms you are describing to the doctor, that he may or may not give you medications. But most of the medications for anxiety, I want to just explain that they're addicting. If you take it for a long time, you could develop an addiction. So the doctors are quite conservative in giving meds. They might give you, let's say, 10 pills for 30 days and say, try it and only take it if you absolutely need it. Because their license is at stake as well, but they also don't want you to depend on meds. They want you to learn coping behavior. So basically, I think it has a lot to do with, recognizing that, oh my God, like it is really bothering me to the point where I cannot get anything done. It's totally on my mind all the time. It's consuming me, and I'm not able to function day to day. right? So that's the time maybe to go ask for some help from the doctor, and don't expect a prescription. Maybe the doctor just going to say, you know what, try to sleep better,
Right.
do sleep hygiene, do some exercise, do some meditation, do some yoga.
Okay.
Like all of those are recommended before medication is given.
Okay, that was my next question. In fact, is the yoga and exercise help?
Yes.
So you already answered
Yeah.
it saying.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, I mean, you don't have to be religious to do meditation. You can just do mindfulness meditation. You can definitely do exercise, it helps. Yoga has been researched actually a lot. It helps with anxiety, it helps with PTSD, and they are even using it even in the national defense for the veterans and stuff,
Okay.
for them to prevent having post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So we are all we come from a community which is quite grounded in religion, right? And we say the higher power will help us, right?
Yes.
That's a good thing, right? Because then we kind of give up our control and say whatever will happen.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But doing your regular prayers and your meditation and practicing yoga and really for anxiety, I would encourage people not to try and depend on medications, because it can become a big problem in the long run.
Okay. Thank you, Reena ji, for all your comments, and we had a good conversation, and you gave us a light, and I learned a lot from you today. I know you speak a good Hindi or Punjabi. Maybe you want to give a message to the people who did not understand maybe few of the words. So if you please have 1 or 2 minutes, you can say something about in Hindi or Punjabi.
Okay. So ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੈਂਡੇਮਿਕ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ sadness ਜਾਂ depression ਦੇ symptoms ਵਗੈਰਾ ਫੀਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਤੰਗ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਸਕਦੇ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ। ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਇਨਕਰੇਜ ਕਰਾਂਗੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖੋ, ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਸੋਰਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਰਹੋ, ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡੋ। ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਰ ਆ ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਲਿਆਂ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਕੱਲਿਆਂ ਛੱਡ ਜਾਓ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਦਾ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੁਸਾਈਡ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਸੋ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਫਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਹਾਂ, ਬਟ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਓਪਨਲੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਦੇ। ਔਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸਿੰਪਟਮਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਰੋਈ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਖਾਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਸੋਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਲੀਅਰਲੀ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਇਰਿਟੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਗੁੱਸਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਲਦੀ, ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਦਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ। ਤਾਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡਣਾ, ਉੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਆਫਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਬਾਈ ਚਾਂਸ ਤੂੰ ਇਹ ਸੋਚੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀਣਾ, ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਲਾਂ, ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰੀ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ 2 ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਨੰਬਰ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਆਂਗੀ, ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਲੋਕਲ ਆਟਵਾ ਦਾ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਨੰਬਰ, ਵੋਲੰਟੀਅਰਸ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ 24/7 ਖੁੱਲਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈਗਾ 6137226914। ਅੱਛਾ, ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਹਾਂਜੀ। ਤੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲਸ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਾਈਡੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਆਪਣੇ ਆਟਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਹਿਡਨ ਜੈਮ ਟੀਮ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਸਿਵਿਕ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਦੀ, ਆਟਵਾ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਦੀ ਟੀਮ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਉਹ ਟੀਮ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਮੋਬਾਈਲ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਟੀਮ। ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਮੋਬਾਈਲ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਟੀਮ ਦਾ ਨੰਬਰ, ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ 6132413925। ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਵਰਕਰਸ ਐਂਡ ਨਰਸਿਸ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਵਰਸ 9 to 9 ਐਵਰੀ ਡੇ। ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਟ੍ਰੀਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੀ ਲੈਣੀ ਆ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ, ਆਪਣੇ ਮਮ ਡੈਡ ਬਾਰੇ, ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਈਏ, ਕੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਨਗੇ।
So you can go as if you want to call, if you're having a ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਅਗਰ
ਹਾਂਜੀ।
ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਿੱਤਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ।
ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਟੀਮ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਵੋਲੰਟੀਅਰਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲਸ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜੇ ਲੋੜ ਪਈ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰਨਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਸਲਟ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ।
That's very good.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਟੀਮ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਟੋਵਾ 'ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੰਡਡ ਹੈ, ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਪੀਪਲ ਯੂਜ਼ ਦੈਮ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਨੰਬਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾਣ। ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਹੋਣੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੰਬਰ ਦੇਖ ਲੈਣਾ।
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ।
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੀ।
Okay,
Thank you, Reena ji. Thank you for coming.
Thank
On
you for
behalf of the
having me.
PCHSC and myself, I really learned a lot today.
Well, I
So
hope
thank
it
you.
helps our community
Yeah.
for sure.
Thank you. And I'm
Thank
sure, and I'm sure if we really need you again, you will be here again.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.